Hey.
It's Snake.
I could have never guessed it.
How's it going?
I'm working on my Rezzmage guide right now, which will not include you or any Metal Gear references this time.
Take it easy, I'm grateful.
Sorry, Snake. The reference never made any sense in the first place.
I don't blame you for wanting me dead, but I can't go yet.
It's not like I don't want this anymore, but some people already hate these long intros so much that I feel like I shouldn't make them anymore.
If the situation is so serious, why don't you give in to their demands?
You know what? If they just want the info, they can still watch Wesk Alba. I'm here for the entertainment, right?
Good girl.
Oh, Snake. I'm no girl, understand? You can literally see me through the codec.
Yeah.
Alright, so here we go.
Happiness for one and all is a dream. And peace built on compromise is flawed and fleeting. And the reality is that to the victor go the spoils.
We only want to make a difference. To make this world of ours better.
Can we not work together? To face our problems as one? If a world without conflict is your desire, why reject the unity and prosperity of Garlemald? Is it because we do not share your faith? That we do not share your heritage? That our ideals and virtues differ? That we cherish and hold in the highest that which you do not? That is why we Garleans will never submit nor surrender. For freedom and for pride, we will remain true to ourselves until the bitter end. That is my hope.
Welcome to another job guide for Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, this time starring the Rezzmage. This guide shall primarily focus on battle mechanics when you have all Rezzmage skills unlocked already. But I will also talk about some tweaks and adjustments for low-level ranges when certain key skills are missing. Just remember, this game is still a game, and trying out things for yourself most of the times will pay out in the long run. So when starting into the Rezzmage, read out some tooltips and give it a try for yourself. Other than that, and apart from the changes to the total amount of mana on your gauge or Manafication, now pushing the Rezzmage directly into its melee combo, you can also check out my level 1 to 80 skills guide, found in the description, when you're starting this job from scratch, because most ideas mentioned there are still valid, except the exact amounts of mana needed, as well as some system changes on acceleration, Embolden or Manafication. And if you want to know more about how the Rezzmage compares to other jobs, check out my initial impressions or the 5 reasons to play Rezzmage video found in the description. Nonetheless, before hopping into the Rezzmage's battle system in Endwalker, I feel more comfortable to throw in a very brief discourse about basic casting foundations, like the ABC guideline. ABC means always be casting and basically refers to the process of always keeping your global cooldown rolling, also referred to as spell uptime. And as you might know already, there are two categories of skills. GCDs, global cooldown spells or weapon skills, that will cause a recast time of basically 2.5 seconds, and OGCDs, off global cooldown abilities, that can be used while this recast timer is rolling. So after using a weapon skill or spell referred to as GCD, you want to use one or sometimes two abilities referred to as OGCDs. This system becomes super important on the Rezzmage, as here you will always stick to the dual casting mechanic, where after your first hard cast spell, your next spell will become an instant spell, which then opens up time and space for weaving in OGC abilities like Contre Sixth, Flash, etc. However, on the melee combo, the first two attacks cause a shorter recast time of 1.5 seconds, so remember to only weave in one OGCD after each of them if needed at that point. So optimally on the Rezzmage it will look like the following. Hard cast spell with a short cast time like Jolt 2, Ver Stone or Ver Fire, followed by the dual cast proc long one like Ver Thunder or Ver Arrow, followed by one or two OGCDs like Contre Sixth or Flash, as well as your displacement or Corba Corp. But of course, there are certain things breaking this cycle a bit, so let me start into this versatile battle system. As just mentioned, the signature mechanic of the Rezzmage is its dual cast ability that is being procced upon hard casting a spell, so by sticking to one spell's cast time. And while it may sound redundant at first because of the whole recast timer system, having each consecutive spell turning into an instant spell is mandatory to throw in all your OGCD abilities, or use utility stuff like Addle, Potions or Gap Closers that are also OGCDs. However, the idea put on top of this is that some Rezzmage spells have long cast times while others have short or base cast times. Here you always want to use the short cast time spells like Jolt, Verfire, Verstone, etc. to proc your dual cast and use dual cast for the big cast time spells like Verthunder or Verarrow. And the same logic applies to AoE spells of course, just look out for the cast time as indication, not the name or category, as these are mixed up in this regard. But of course the story doesn't end here and can also be applied to raising, so never hard cast a Verraise spell and use a short damaging spell or Vercure to proc dual cast and then let Verraise become an instant and consume the dual cast proc. Of course, because of having a whole set of spells being put into the fast cast and long cast categories, a decision needs to be made where your job gauge or simply your mana comes into play. This mana job gauge grants the Rezzmage access to its powerful finisher burst attacks that will be extended with each level breakpoint you reach, starting with only the 3 melee attacks on level 50 and leading to the big finale with Revelation on level 90. So our goal is to get up white mana seen on the left side of the gauge and black mana seen on the right side to 50 to get this started. And how do we get there? By using spells of each category in alternation to balance it out as best as possible, as well as neutral skills like Jolt 2 or Impact. The best thing here, your finisher spells also grant a significant amount of mana, so once you start into your burst combo, you won't leave it with empty hands. However, there are also procs like Verfire and Verstone that with a 50% chance can be procced by the big cast time spells in the same category, and which are slightly more efficient for gaining mana as well as dealing damage than your Jolt. So every try you're proccing these, continue with them instead of Jolt or Jolt 2 to proc dual cast, while trying to avoid overriding procs, which mostly only happens after your burst window or when having to use acceleration for movement. In that case, just favor the mana lacking elemental side. Above that, Verholy and Verflare, that are your finishers to your melee combo, also grant a guaranteed proc of Verstone or Verfire, when using the element of which you have less mana at the moment, so starting into the melee combo slightly unbalanced on both sides can offer more procs. Speaking of procs, acceleration. Changed in Endwalker, this ability is basically your dual cast effect but for Verthunder, Verarrow and Impact alone, also their upgraded versions respectively. On top of that, it will guarantee the linked elemental proc effect. When using it for Verarrow for example, Verstone will be procced upon its use. This coming in super handy as you can use it for any form of movement, and by having 2 stacks of it on level 88, you win a whole lot of flexibility by saving this skill and keeping one as backup. Furthermore, you can also use it whenever you lack any proc of Verstone or Verfire and want to optimize for the higher DPS output to avoid casting Jolt. But whatever you decide for, make sure to not keep those stacks unused and before reaching the total number of 2 stacks again. So use at least one for movement or Jolt avoidance. Another impressive tool altering your usual setup is Manafication, with which you can jumpstart into your bursting sequence, granting you 50 mana on both sides instantly, while also amplifying your damage output by 5% upon reaching level 78. And make sure to have this skill line up with raid buffs of other players or your own Embolden buff, as most you will use your burst melee combo and spell finishers in consecution. So that also means apart from any exact opener modification, you also should use Embolden at this point. But of course, every show needs side characters, right? And these are really good on the Rezzmage's performance, starting with Flash, which is your strongest OGCD ability that you should keep on cooldown, so basically use this whenever it's ready, except your own or party buff's cooldown phase is just around the corner, like 3 or 4 seconds left. Then wait a short moment to use it buffed. The kinda same applies to Contre Sixth, just with one exception, it is much more powerful on multiple targets, so when there's the slightest chance to hit a second or even more enemies with it, hold it back for a moment. Coming to Core à Core and Displacement or Engagement. While these offer a straightforward boost to your overall damage output, they also contain movability. So with a rule of thumb, if you need to get close to your enemy, using Core à Core can become super handy. But most of the times I find myself using it for damaging reasons alone. However, as we're having 2 stacks now, and if you're not aiming for the super high-end optimization where using both stacks during buff windows would make sense, you can always save 1 stack for movement situations later. The same applies to displacement of course, just remember that back jumping contains higher risks of killing yourself, so if the back jump is not needed, simply use engagement instead, as these are on the same power level now since Endwalker. What about defensive stuff, Magic Barrier for example? This is super helpful anytime big raid damage is expected, and you should use it wisely against it. In particular, when its second trait, the boosted healing output can also be utilized in combination. Just remember, it is still an OGCD ability, so using it alongside your dual cast spell or any other instant is recommended. The same goes for Addle, which works a bit differently because of using it on the target and reducing the target's damage output for a short while. Use this whenever the boss is performing raid-wide stuff, but not too late, as it needs some time for the engine to register this ability. Last but not least, what about raising, Vercure, Swift Cast and the title Rezzmage? The reason why using Swift Cast for other stuff in your rotation, especially when movement is required, comes from the fact that dual cast can literally make each of your Verraise an instant spell. So there's no need to rush out a Swift Cast Verraise, when you could just use any normal cast spell to proc dual cast and then use Verraise instantly. That is where the title comes into play, as this process is basically bound to how much MP the Rezzmage is having left. With that fact, you can easily raise an entire party, so make sure that Lucid Dreaming is always at your side and keep it on cooldown as soon as your MP drops, which will happen naturally. Vercure on the other hand is a bit more complicated, as it's advised to use it as little as possible due to sacrificing damage for it. Surely, this does apply to Verraise as well, but with a small difference. Raising is equal to the one healers have at their disposal, but their healing spells are much more powerful than your Vercure. So if by any means necessary the healer can get the job done without your healing assistance, let this happen to provide much better efficiency and keep on with your damage responsibilities. However, if your Vercure is able to prevent the death of a party member, and that is the only way to do it due to healers being dead or they cannot make it in time, it might be the strongest DPS advantage you can pull off. So, if in a well-practiced combat scenario everything performs under normal circumstances, Vercure is not needed, but anytime it doesn't, it can become the most important tool you have. Especially if both healers are dead and you need to top off yourself to survive the next raid-wide attack, then raise healers who keep the fight running with LB3. And in all honesty, this is one of the most satisfying moments you can achieve in this game. And when talking about things happening all over the place and against the usual order, what about Rotational Drift? On the Rezzmage there's basically none, due to the fact that all your finisher attacks now can be kept for an eternity. So if by any chance you started with your melee combo and then the boss is disappearing going into an intermission phase, no problem, just keep the next attack for when the boss returns. The only exception, cooldown timings. Here just make sure to align your Manafication and Embolden with your party buffs again and let the show begin for a second time. What about AoE damage? This has changed in Endwalker and I really love the way it did, because now our goal is to keep alternating between our Verarrow and Verthunder too. There are short cast time spells in AoE situations with 3 or more targets, followed by Impact used with dual cast, being the long cast time AoE version. So far that sounds like the old AoE system, right? Yeah, exactly, but the thing is that now our mana gauge spender in the form of Enchanted Moulinet can also be used to enter the finisher burst window. So the only requirement is to use it 3 times in a row, like you would use the single target melee swings as well. So do your elemental short spell to dual cast Impact Rotation until you have reached 60 mana on both sides, or use Manafication to boost this process. Then use Enchanted Moulinet 3 times in a row and let your Verflare, Verholy, then Scourge and Revelation follow, which now also causes damage to multiple enemies with a small fall of potency, which is still super powerful to use against packs of mobs. Furthermore, Impact is stronger than you might think, being amplified by acceleration by 50 potency, as well as already outperforming its single target counterparts on 2 targets, unlike usual AoE spells, getting better on 3. So with that in mind, keep acceleration stacks for Impact in packs of mobs, and don't hesitate to use Impact as dual cast follow-up spell on fights with 2 targets together with your single target system. And before coming to some gearing tips for the Rezzmage, let us talk about tweaks to the battle system on low level ranges. First of all, the whole mana gauge receiving and spending system stays identical, just the tools and abilities which you use to achieve or spend them are different. Already starting at level 4, the mix between using Jolt and Verthunder in alternation and as example for the little big relation is the key aspect of red magic. Afterwards, each gauge spender received will be used under as many buffs as possible, and when reaching level 50 you should stick with a 50-50 system when using the gauge spenders, followed by whatever finisher spell you gain access to with the rise of your level. Manafication on 60 will make a difference of course, as it allows the Rezzmage to jumpstart into the burst combo, and so will your journey slowly but steadily be extended by each pair of levels you progress further. Just stick to building up mana with a little big dual cast idea, use procs before jolts, acceleration when no proc available or movement is required as well as swift cast, and time your melee and spell finisher combos into buff windows, whatever number of spells you have at your disposal, while fitting in OGCD abilities in the recast time of instant cast spells, procced by either dual cast or being finisher instants. Alright, last but not least, equipment and melding materia. That is a really easy thing on the Rezzmage, as we don't have any tiers nor weird stance behavior like the summoner has. Just go for any boost to your weapon damage, as this seems to be even more significant than in Shadowbringers, or at least spell speed is not as bad as avoiding it would make up for losing weapon damage. The same can be applied to item level and main stats. Here, just head for those pieces first offering critical hit, determination or direct hit as substat, and then take those pieces offering spell speed last. Because the reason why avoiding spell speed makes sense here, the whole dual cast system, which clearly doesn't benefit much from this aspect. Yes, recast timers are reduced, but that falls short compared to the power boost achieved through the other substats. Above that, OGCDs don't profit from spell speed at all, and the Rezzmage has a lot of these, so avoid spell speed when not sacrificing weapon damage or more than 10 item levels for it. And that is basically all I can tell you about how to get started with the Rezzmage. But of course, if you still have some energy left to learn about some rotation ideas, check out my Rezzmage rotation video found in the description, or by clicking this little button in the top right corner. Until next time, have fun with one of my absolute favorites of jobs, and remember, no other DPS job is able to sustain progress as good as the Rezzmage, and does look freaking cool by doing it. Proc parties will definitely love you. So, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep loving Final Fantasy.